College Coaches Corner. The College Coaches Corner provides practical information on a variety of topics that college coaches experience daily in directing a strength and conditioning program. Testing. Summary. Testing is a big part of most collegiate strength and conditioning programs and is a common in most programs. As barbells and dumbbells, typically, testing is used to evaluate progress of athletes to measure the effectiveness of the training program and to motivate the athletes involved in the training program. Our panel of 3 experts explains how they perform testing with their athletes in their respective collegiate strength and conditioning programs. At the Humboldt State University, we use a battery strength and conditioning power test for our 13 intercollegiate sports. All of our athletes are regularly tested and evaluated with regard to body, height, and weight, the vertical jump, back squat, power clean, and bench press. The measurements are straightforward and easy for the strength conditioning staff to administer, monitor, and measure in a consistent manner. Testing is administered at the beginning and at the end of each team's off-season macro cycle. The length of these training cycles varies among sports, but is usually 10 to 12 weeks long. There are times in the training mesocycle that we adjust maxes depending on performance. We never test during the in-season training routines. The vertical jump test measures lower body explosive power and allows the assessment of the main goal of our periodization training programs, power. All teams test with the Vertec measurement device. Manufacturer is Sino and Dunson Corporation, Tokyo, Japan, and uses a 2-foot takeoff. Each athlete is allowed to continue jumping until he or she has failed to improve twice in a row. The volleyball and basketball programs are also evaluated with the 1-step and approach takeoff. The front, back, and overhead squats are the base of the strength program and are taught and administered to all intercollegiate teams. The back squat is regularly tested, with football and track and field weight athletes using a 1-repetition RM and 3 RM test, and the rest of the teams using the weight that falls within the 1 RM to 5 RM. Back squat scores are scored using the extrapolate workout percentages for front squat 70% of back squat RM, single leg squat 40%, lunge 30%, and overhead squatting movements 20% in our periodization training programs. The power clean is one of the weightlifting movements that is regularly tested. Our program uses weightlifting and variations of those lifts, i.e. snatch, push jerk, and barbell and dumbbell. However, only the power clean is tested. Weightlifting movements are closely monitored for the technique and safety using the USA Weightlifted Prescribed Teaching Progression. Most teams test using a weight that falls within a 1 RM to 5 RM, with football and track and field weight athletes using a weight ranging from 1 to 3 RM. The full front squat catch is used in all testing, so in true technical terms, a power clean becomes a clean. To avoid confusion among the athletes, we continue to use the term power clean. The scores of the power clean are used to extrapolate the workout percentages for all the weightlifting movements in the program, such as the snatch, which we take at 65% of the power clean max. This low percentage allows us to focus on speed of the movement in a very technically demanding and potentially dangerous exercise. The bench press is the universal measurement of upper body strength. It is familiar to the athletes and is easy to teach and administer. For safety reasons, our teams, except football, use 3 RM conversions to determine their 1 RM. Football uses both the 3 RM and the 1 RM. Several of our teams have very little bench press type movements in their routine, and some none at all. Softball pitchers, javelin throwers. With all the weightlifting overhead movements implemented in the training programs, i.e. snatch, push, jerk, overhead squat, most of the athletes, even the ones with no bench press movements in their programs, experience substantial upper body strength gains. Tests of speed, acceleration, and agility vary among the sports. Although the 40-yard dash is widely used to measure linear speed, it is frowned on by many of our sport coaches because of the injury potential that it presents. Most of our teams test in the 10 to 20-yard sprint to measure acceleration. Occasionally, depending on the time of the year, the enthusiasm of the athletes, and the mood of the coaches, we extend the 10 and 20 yard distances to include a trial of 2 in the 40-yard distance. The 3 cone and pro agility tests are used pretty much across the board to measure ability to change direction. Most of our teams, especially the anaerobic sports, do not test to measure endurance and aerobic capacity. We as a strength and conditioning staff do not administer the tests or track the results. Some of the sport coaches, however, will perform and monitor aerobic capacity tests on their own. The volleyball, soccer, and women's basketball programs love to use the BEEP test. In both soccer teams still administer the mile run and the Cooper's test. Drew Peterson is the head strength and conditioning program at Humboldt State University. I have seen a number of athletes who are very strong in the weight room but unsuccessful in sport, as well as what we would consider weaker athletes excel in their sport. I do not feel it is our job to produce big numbers. It is our job to produce better athletes, and therefore I do not put a lot of emphasis on testing. And so, we will administer 1 to 2 times a year at the end of the off seasons. I think there is need to test so that athletes can see progress. However, I think it is more important to train than it is to max and chase a number. Therefore, when we do tests, we still train, so we do not lose workout time just to test. If we clean on Monday, we will test clean on Monday, followed by a few auxiliary exercises. I do not want to lose an entire week of training for 3 tests. Sometimes, what we test is dependent on a coach's request. Remember, we work for them. I prefer to build the workouts based on previous workout numbers and other considerations rather than percentages for my 1RM test. When we do test, we test 1RM. I want to know exactly what the athlete can do. The athlete wants to know exactly what they can do. I do not like multiple repetition rep testing. I have seen too many athletes lift 200 2-3 times, then get pinned under 205 for a lift 132 or 3 times. But when the small plates become one big plate, they cannot do it. With sports that do not test, I work to heavy triples or doubles in a workout to get a good idea what they can do. However, I will not predict their max for coaches, records, media, or so on. The only way I will call it a max is if they do a 1RM. There is time and place for predicting numbers when multiple reps, such as with young athletes, inexperienced lifters, and athletes coming off an injury. I just predict the number of workouts until they are ready to test. We test power clean, back squat, and bench press for track, men's basketball, volleyball, and softball. We have not tested baseball because 22 of the 38 are freshmen. We do not test women's basketball at the coach's request. Golf and tennis are not tested. Neither team performs any of the above exercises. Most coaches here handle the majority of the running tests, but we do run a 300-yard shuttle fitness test with volleyball in the fall. Kathy Wagner is the head strength and conditioning coach at the University of Texas at Arlington. There are several considerations I take into account when deciding which performance test to use with a team or an individual athlete. Each test must demonstrate high degree of validity and reliability. Validity requires the strength and conditioning coach to ensure that each test actually tests what it purports to test. This could be evaluating lower body power using a vertical jump. We would not use a 40-yard dash to evaluate lower body power. The reliability construct is the ability of the test to be consistently repeated. I will use the vertical jump as an example again. We use the same warm-up sequence, the same jumping surface, and the same protocol for testing the other athletes reach to give the same number of attempts for each athlete for each testing session. Each test should provide a way of assessing the athlete's ability in a specific area. Although some tests can be general, sport-specific tests should be well used when possible. Finally, a well-planned battery of tests should provide the athlete, team, and coach with a complete picture of their current level of physical readiness. The strength and conditioning coach should assist sport coaches in developing a testing protocol that best assesses physical traits important to their particular sport. Other testing outcomes include identifying an athlete or a team's strengths and weaknesses, serving a basis for evaluating program design, highlighting individual and team progress, acting as a positive reinforcement for the training program and providing motivation for the individual team and the coaching staff. As a strength and conditioning coach, I must provide a systematic approach linking the training program to the testing and then using testing results to help meet each sport's objective. When testing for specific measures of strength, I use 1RM effort for all trained and experienced athletes, regardless of the sport. A philosophical reason for this is that athletes are consistently reminded this is a maximal effort program, and we expect a maximal effort for them as a team. 3RM and 5RM are grounded in submaximal efforts and may send the wrong message to properly trained and well-coached athletes. Another reason for using 1RM is that the athlete can either lift the weight or cannot. There is no prediction or conversion to a 1RM. I believe lifting technique is compromised more often in a multiple rep test compared with the 1RM test. Although a 3RM, 5RM, or 8RM, or even a 10RM is used throughout the training year for current strength levels and feedback, the 1RM should be the cornerstone of strength testing. The back squat, power clean with no straps, and bench press are 3 exercises that most well-coached collegiate athletes should be able to execute a 1RM effort when evaluating total body, low and high speed strength levels. If you are designing proper strength training programs and coaching your athletes, 1RM tests should not be present in any unusual challenges. Choosing performance tests and their accurately assesses power and speed should be grounded in skills, fundamental, and success in that specific athlete's or team's sport. These tests should be well-documented body of results that can be drawn on to effectively and accurately evaluate whether an athlete or a team stands based on their score or results. Unique, creative, or school-specific tests may have merit in motivating athletes, but may offer little comparison with athletes of other programs. Standardized tests with well-documented results allow coaches to make comparisons from year to year in their programs to other recognized programs and even other athletes in other sports. Tests for lower body power should include vertical and broad jumps. Athletic agility can be measured using several well-established tests such as the I test, T test, Edgren, sidestep, 3-cone of various shuttles on either a court or a grass field. Linear speed can be the most accurately assessed using sprints such as the 10, 20, 40, 60, or 100-yard sprint. Depending on the sport, starting stances may vary for the sprints. Whatever tests are chosen, strength and conditioning coaches must ensure that a consistent protocol is used, regardless of the sport. Trent Greener is the Director of Strength and Conditioning and head football strength coach at the University of Wyoming.